What's hot at the Google I/O Developer Conference? Vertical Hold is proudly sponsored by NetComm, taking Australian technology to the global market. Welcome to Vertical Hold, behind the tech news, where we channel surf through the headlines in search of the big picture. I'm Adam Turner, and I'm not joined this week by Alex Kidman. Instead, we've taken the show on the road to the Google I/O Developer Conference in Mountain View, California, supposedly enjoying the beautiful Californian sunshine, which is peeks through every now and then. We're coming to you live from the Googleplex with two great guests. Firstly, we've got a new guest on the show, Ozdroid Deputy Editor Scott Plowman. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Also, we've got a long-time friend of the show and gadget guru, the News Corp National Tech Editor, Jen Dudley-Nicholson. Jen, welcome back to the show.
Greetings and salutations.
So it's been a big week, lots of things on show from Google. The big thing is that we have cheaper flagship Google Pixel phones. Scott, talk us through it.
The new Pixel is the Pixel for the masses. It's the one that most can afford, whereas most can't afford the other Pixel. You know, we've gone from a premium high-end price and device to something that's half the price and has basically nearly every functionality.
So we're talking about the cheaper ones are, instead of the Pixel 3 and 3 XL, we've got a 3A and 3A XL, yes?
Yep. That's it. So the 3A and the 3A XL differ basically just with the display size. Where they differ from the 3 and the 3 XL, it's getting confusing, is they're missing waterproofing, they're missing wireless charging, they have a polycarbonate coating rather than a metallic and glass. But aside from that, most of the software functionality is there, and that's what makes a Pixel device.
So what kind of difference are we talking about in the pricing, and what are you giving up in return?
Okay, so we're looking at $650 for the 3A and 800 smackers for the XL, 3A XL, sorry. What do you get in return? You get everything that makes the Pixel great. The camera, you get the software. Sabrina from Google talked about it this morning in our round table, where she said that they basically said to the Taiwan team, they said, here's our device, get our Pixel camera running on it. And so they had to basically re-code everything to get it running on the mid-range processor.
So yeah, it's not as powerful, but it doesn't feel like a budget second-rate phone, like you've really sacrificed a lot.
Now, look, it just feels a little bit lighter, but if you're someone who has a case on their phone, you're really not going to notice much difference at all. I've actually haven't been using a Pixel for a few months now, and when I started using this, it was just felt exactly the same as using the Pixel 3.
So, Jen, the Pixel flagships have always been north of $1,000 like all the other flagships. Do you think this is a bit of a breakthrough moment? Do you think it'll make it really throw down the gauntlet to the other Android flagships?
I think it's definitely a big challenge. I think it's been interesting for me to hear Google basically trash everybody, because they're coming out here and they're saying, well, you know, flagship phones are actually wicked expensive, which is what we've all been thinking, because over the past 2 years, especially in Australia, not so much in America, we've seen like phone prices go over the $2,000 mark, which is ridiculous. And now they're sort of up around the $2,400 mark. And so for them to come out and say, look, here's a $650 phone, $650 is still a lot of dollars, but it doesn't feel like very much at all when you're comparing it to that sort of money. So, yeah, I mean, I think that they could do really well. Also, the Pixel 3 hasn't sold terribly well for Google. We heard about that in their latest earnings call. They said, you know, there were a lot of competitive pressures in the smartphone market, which means that, yeah, we're all paying extra money, and they haven't quite got up to the lofty heights of putting 4 lenses on the back of their phones yet. So maybe this will do really well for Google, because they'll sell an awful lot more at a cheaper price, and that will make up for the fact that not many people are buying the Pixel 3.
Well, sorry, when you think about it, what's the main thing people use on their phones these days? Internet and camera.
Yeah.
You know, they want a great camera. There isn't a mid-range phone that can match what the Pixel can do. And if they've brought that Pixel experience in the camera over to a mid-range phone, the others had better look out.
So is it the mid-range phone makers that really need to watch out for this?
Oh, for sure.
I think that others do too, because like Samsung and Apple and even Huawei have all brought out mid-range phones now, and that's kind of a tacit recognition that yes, our phones are too expensive, so maybe you won't buy the iPhone 10s Max. I have to even think about before I say it, and you'll buy the 10R instead. Maybe you'll buy the Samsung S10e instead of, the big expensive $2,400 phone. And so they're already in that space and kind of cutting themselves short. So this is just, Google doing it again. I think what Google have to do as well, though, because you're talking about how good the camera is, and I think it really is. They use artificial intelligence really intelligently to produce some great photos from the one lens on the back of this phone, and even to do portrait mode, which was quite a feat technologically. I think they need to communicate that to people, because if they're looking at, for example, the iPhone 10R and thinking, this is maybe what I should get because it has, 2 cameras on the back of it as opposed to this one. Does it? Some of them do. Or the 10e, which has multiple cameras on the back. Maybe they're thinking, well, more is obviously better than one. I think Google really needs to proactively go out there and say, our camera is top stuff. You need to go and check this out in the cheaper phone.
What about the billboards that we've seen from Google here in California showing off the photos? Tell us about them.
I am here for this stuff. So the biggest cheer that happened at the big keynote at I.O. was when Google put up a night photo that had been taken with this cheapish new phone, comparing it to one taken from the iPhone 10. They've got billboards out here now, apparently on the freeway, with a night photo from an iPhone and a night photo from a Pixel 3a, saying, which one do you prefer? Obviously, they have a lot of intelligence around, how to make photos look good in low light. I mean, Apple's not going to like it. I'm here for it. Feel free to all, fight amongst yourselves, and I'm just going to sit back with my popcorn.
The Apple photo looks like it was taken on the set of Game of Thrones.
A lot of controversy. No, I'm not getting involved.
Oh, look, you're not going to get involved, but Google aren't, showing anything that's false, are they?
No.
And so maybe Apple will come out with something, in the next few months, and when the new iPhone comes out, they'll be the next one with a night mode on their phone, and, they'll ball will be back in Google's court.
So they're not just talking about new Pixel phones and new hardware. We're also talking about new Android features, and especially we're finding out more about Android Q. What's worth getting excited about in Android Q? What have they shown off this week?
Android Q, well, there's not a hell of a lot new this week, but we've just sort of learned about it officially. We've had the beta and the developer preview out for a few months now. Look, we've got dark mode. Everyone's got to love dark mode. System-wide dark mode. Google have been starting to put it through their apps for the last 6 months or so. We've seen YouTube have it, and a few others with the phone and calendar, I think, as well. But now it's going to be system-wide switch, turned on by the developer or within an app. It can be implemented several ways. And the end result will be someone can choose dark mode, and the reason you choose the dark mode, 1, it looks better, and 2, it will save your battery life.
Especially on those OLED screens.
Yes, for sure.
And so what about just Android in general? What new features have they been showing off?
We've got a lot of new security and a lot of what's the word for it? Privacy, thank you. A lot of security and privacy. Look, we're just touching the surface, the tip of the iceberg at the moment with our privacy concerns. We've seen Facebook have issues, and fingers are pointing at Google as well. So I think they're doubling down on that, and everything's going to be back to what the user wants, and we're going to have a lot more control over what we allow Google and allow other people to see. So apps aren't going to be able to view other apps' data on your phone. Okay, so it's all sandbox. They can only see media, and they can only see their own data.
So, Jen, were there any privacy or security changes that particularly impressed you or have you concerned?
There are some privacy changes that I think were a long time coming, and this feels like it feels very reactionary. I don't think that Google would have done this if there hadn't been such big outrage and big talk about it recently. Obviously, Facebook's been bearing the brunt of it, so maybe, and Apple's been out there as well saying, we're really private, guys. You should come across and buy an iPhone and we won't share your stuff. So one of the interesting things that they did talk about before the conference, we heard that you were going to be able to delete your location history if you had it turned on after a certain period of time. So the option is going to be there for you to delete everything like beyond 3 months, for example, or 18 months if you want them to keep a longer store of where you've been, or you want to find out where you may have put your keys down, 12 months ago. They rolled that out to web searches as well. So potentially you can delete all your web search information after 3 months, which is probably just healthy for people, to be honest.
Well, it's a nice automatic thing, someone doesn't have to go and do it themselves, so you can just set it and let it be in 3 months, whatever.
Exactly. It's interesting for Google though, because in the same way that Facebook has a problem, Google has a problem, because in order to get a lot of their services to work, they need private data from people. They can't personalize anything. They can't personalize ads that they can sell. They can't personalize recommendations unless they have information about you. So while they're talking about things being private, they can't be fully private. Nothing's ever going to be all stored on your device and just get little snippets of information from Google. So while they're talking about privacy, there are limitations to what they can actually do. It is nice to see them make some sort of effort, but I think that people have got to realise that this is kind of a little bit of effort.
So, Scott, they're also extending this idea of incognito mode that's been in the browser for a while. Basically, you can open a new window where it doesn't remember what you did, whatever you did in the privacy of your own home. None of my business, right? They're expanding this idea to other apps and services, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's about time. We want that incognito mode in our Google Play Music so our kids don't miss out on our algorithm, our YouTube, so they don't mess up the algorithm there, Google bases all their recommendations on that algorithm and on your preferences and what you've listened to in the past. And so this incognito mode is going to be fantastic. Or if you're doing a story on some royal baby or something, there you go. You don't get royal family recommendations for the next 6 months.
I also found it was interesting that they added incognito mode to map searches as well, and I think driving instructions. So it doesn't just hide you're looking at online porn, but if you drive somewhere to buy some porn, you can still turn up, so it covers all occasions. So Jen, apart from incognito mode, is there anything else you think that's overdue in that people are expecting this extra level of privacy?
They did mention this is in Android Q, there's a lot more sort of focus on privacy in terms of which apps can access your location. So we're seeing in this Android Q beta that you can download now, which is really interesting that you can go and you can do that because you can't do that with all phones. You can go in and you can have a look at which apps actually have access to your privacy all the time. And in Android Q, it will also surface apps that are using your location when you don't actually have them open. And so in that way, it's kind of Google pointing the finger at somebody else saying, you are creepy, which is an interesting pot kettle situation. Yeah. But still incredibly useful because there's a lot of apps that, when you installed them, maybe it was a historic moment and it was, 3 years ago and you didn't realize they've been using your location this entire time. It's nice to get that reminder that, yes, please make them stop.
Puts you in control of it, does it? I haven't had a chance to look through that setting yet.
Yeah, so it actively pops it up and says, this is using your location, even though you haven't opened the app in so long. Do you really want to continue to do this? And there's also a menu where you can go through and you can just say, these apps, you can have a look at my location only when I'm actually using the app, or you can turn it off altogether, which is nice. And it's also something that iPhone users have had for a long time. So in a way, it's playing catch up.
And also it can be a bit of a battery saver as well, because apps that are constantly monitoring your location in the background using GPS definitely chew through your battery.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you've got to be very selective about which you use, because then when you go and try and use an app and you've turned off the GPS for it, but it's a great idea, and I think the granular controls, Google keeps talking about putting it all back in our control. We're sort of moving towards that, but they're sort of clinging on as much as they can. But as Jen said, you get out of Google what you put into Google. Yeah. Basically, if you want to get the full experience, you basically got to sell your soul to them.
One of the most interesting demos that I saw on stage to do with Android was the fact that they are now going to be able to run Google Assistant on the device on some devices. So when you ask it a question or it needs to interpret what you said, it doesn't need to go up to the cloud and come back down again. It can do it on the spot. And the Pixel 3 phones will be the first ones that can do this, because they took what was 100 gig of data required to make this work, and they've managed to distill it down to 500 meg, less than a gig. So they can get it.
Pixel 4. Didn't they say later this year?
I think it was actually the next
Pixel.
The next
so
Pixel.
It won't work on these, so they still don't know if it's going to go back to the Pixel 3A yet. Even.
Okay. All right. So it'll start off just with a flagship phone, but the demonstration that they showed was very impressive, where a woman went through like 10 different quick commands. Show me these photos. Show me what the weather's going to be like. Find me a map to this. I want to buy this thing online. And the phone just went bang, bang, bang. There was zero latency. It was amazing to watch, when you're used to having to wait for that lag while it goes out, gets your answer, and comes back again. What kind of difference do you think that will make to the Android user experience and to users in general?
I think, well, not a massive difference. I mean, you've got to wait a couple of seconds for Google to answer you. But
will it change the way people use their phones once they know they can just ask it a question and just not have to wait?
Oh, for sure. If you know you're going to get an answer straight away, why wouldn't you just answer it or just ask the question? You know, often you say, okay, Google, and you wait for it to trigger or whatever, and you say your question, and then you got to wait for it to think and spin up and go to the web, and, you know, if you're on 3G at the time or whatever, you got to, triggered my phone. And then you've got to wait for the answer. But if it's there waiting for you, I mean, we saw that demo. It was amazing. Didn't get any of the voice wrong either, so it was very good voice recognition.
They haven't told us which other devices it might come to. I would like to see some of it come to the Google Home. I think part of it is not just the onboard storage, but also the onboard processing. But I've noticed at my house, if the internet is out, the Google Home can't do anything. Like if you say anything to it, it basically says, can't connect to the internet now, come back. Whereas if it had some base level of functionality built in, you'd still be able to do a few things with it, even if it's just turn the lights on and off or ask it what the time is.
Yeah, well, sure, they'll bring that in the future. I mean, I doubt the processors, if they're saying they're going to struggle to put it on the Pixel 3 at this stage, it's not going to make it back to the Google Home, is it? But maybe going forwards, they're going to look at doing that.
So one of the big things with the Google Home is now Nest, because they've taken what was their Nest, that they acquired Nest, they brought them into Google. They're now basically part of Google. So the Google Home Hub is now the Google Nest Hub. But we have a Max version, do we not, Jen? A big screen.
Maximum Google Nest, yes. So we have this version. It was interesting to me that they decided to bring this out, because I think the smart speaker with a screen works really well, and we've seen that there's maybe it looks a bit better. There's a bit more functionality. You feel more comfortable with the screen. Like maybe you don't necessarily know exactly what to ask, but you can certainly like punch something into a screen and use it like a tablet. But Google decided this time that this one needed a camera on the front of it, which baffles me so much, because like Facebook brought out the Portal, which was widely decried as the worst decision that they've made, and they've made some shockers. And they decided to put in everybody's homes a camera that followed you around the house, because that's what I want in my house. I want a camera following me around that's logging me into Facebook at all times so they can share ridiculous photos of me. I'm sorry, I've got relatives to show really awkward photos of me. I don't need some device at my house to do that. So so Google has put a camera on the front of this Nest Hub Max device, which is going to take me some time to actually spit out. It's interesting. It does face matching. So their idea is this is for the communal part of your home. You'll be able to put this in the kitchen. You'll be able to put this in the lounge room. It will recognize you. It will recognize members of your family. You will be able to send video messages to members of your family instead of actually talking to them in person, because why would you want to do that?
I agree.
Apparently no one's up at the same time anymore, and you can't have conversations with them. Welcome to modern life. And it will also apparently surface things for you, so that when you look at it, it will send you personalized reminders. It will show you your calendar dates, what appointments you've got, your commute times, that sort of thing. I'm interested to see it. I'm incredibly skeptical, and we'll just wait and see.
We found that a lot of complaints we heard of the Home Hub was it didn't have a camera. Really? I mean, our readers are so into the Google ecosystem. They wanted a camera. They wanted to do voice or video calling, and that was the main thing they missed on it. So I think this will be a hit with a lot of people. If someone is, you hear it all the time, people don't want Google listening to their conversations all the time. Those people aren't going to buy a Nest Hub without a camera, so why not just stick it in? Because the people who are using the Google Home anyway are probably going to be okay with the camera.
It's really next level though, because they've even made a point that the camera follows you around the house. Yes. It's like the Mona Lisa, but super creepy. And so like the idea is that the camera will it has a 127-degree frame of view, so it will actually hone in on where you are within the house. And that's
to be fair, within the room. Well, like it doesn't float around the house like an orb and follow you from room to room. Yeah, it is. That's the Model 2, yeah.
And the idea behind that is keeping you in the center of the frame so that, grandma's, in the center of the frame when she's actually looking off into the corner because she's doing a video chat and doesn't really understand where the camera is. And I get that, but that's a lot of information to be handing over to a person. And also, you can use this as a security camera, which is the whole idea behind the Nest camera that we didn't really get in Australia. But while it appeals to me that because I'm overseas at the moment that I could tune into my house and I can see, what the lazy people are doing in my house and whether my husband's giving my kid tiny teddies, sure, they probably don't want that information shared with me. So again, we're back to the creepy stage.
I'm surprised they got the security switch on the back that electronically disables the power to the camera and the microphone. What if you just wanted to turn the camera off and just use it as a large home hub? But you can't do that, can you?
You can't. You have to point it at the wall.
No, my understanding was you can turn off one and not the other, but that has to be done in software in the menus.
Okay.
The physical switch will only turn them both off. So there's no switch that says just give me audio or just give me camera. But I think you can go into the menus and switch off the camera without having to switch off the microphone.
I'm so glad this is easy. This is just so straightforward. Yeah. Honestly, I'm getting a piece of tape.
But they have given you they have given you a lot of flexibility about what you can do with the camera. For example, the face matching is optional. You don't have to turn that on, just like the voice matching is optional. You can set it up like a Nest camera, which means it will take video 24/7 and constantly upload it to the internet, which is handy if you want to go back and see what was happening yesterday or you want to see a live feed now. But you don't have to do that, and it's not turned on by default.
Yeah, a lot of those functions you need to wear
subscription
for. I've got an Nest Cam, and without the subscription, it's just a streaming camera.
Yeah,
doesn't have the facial recognition where it captures faces it doesn't know and things like that. So if you really want, and they're not cheap, the Nest Aware subscriptions.
So the real showstopper when we were here last year was Google Duplex, where they basically passed the Turing test on stage. They got a machine to ring a restaurant, pretend to be a real person, even dropping ums and ahs into the conversation so they sounded like a real person, and book a table. And the person on the restaurant at the other end was totally oblivious to the fact they were talking to a machine. It was technologically unbelievable and pretty scary on every other aspect. This year, Jen, they've gone further with Duplex, but it maybe not quite the showstopper that we saw last year.
Yeah, see, I think we really reached peak creepy with Google last year. Like the idea that this computer could pretend to be somebody, like a human person, and could place calls for you. Like that was next level.
Especially when Google's got recordings of your voices.
Oh, exactly.
I wondered about that. Could it actually pretend to be you? But no, it doesn't pretend to be you. And since those demos, they've added a lot more to it. It still only works in parts of the US, but it tells people now when it's ringing, "Hi, I'm a computer," blah, blah, blah. It didn't do that in the demos we heard last year.
No, I think by everybody's reaction, they realize that we've taken this too far. And Google, one of the best things and the worst things about Google is that they have this line that they go between where they try to sit on the fence between super useful and super creepy. And that one was way too far into super creepy. So this year, they've pared it back. I was kind of looking forward to them just faking like Donald Trump's voice and you be able to call your mates in his voice or something.
You're fired.
Well, and that's the best of it, yeah. Call my accountant. But what Duplex brought this year was potentially you'll be able to make bookings and not hair appointments. Apparently it's the car bookings, like car rental bookings is the thing this year. where you'll be able to make bookings and it will pre-fill a lot of the information for you. So it will be like a next level pre-fill.
So it's not making a phone call, it's using the browser on your phone.
It is, yes. And it's still using a lot of information that you give it. So the creepy part came in where it learns your, from previous emails and bookings that you've had that are in your Gmail account. It will work out what kind of car that you like, what sort of bookings you like to make, and it will pre-fill that information. So still a little bit creepy, but not all the way creepy.
So if you leave a negative review, does it count that as a bad thing and not to choose that car again?
Maybe. Or maybe not to choose that car company. I don't know. You still get the final say in all of this. So apparently, like, it'll even pre-fill your credit card details, but you still have to put in the CVV number or whatever it is. So you still have the final say. Google doesn't actually control your life, according to this. It just mainly makes your preferences for you and keeps track of everything you do.
So it's basically like a super advanced autocomplete.
Yeah, autocomplete for your life.
Yes.
Yes. The creepy part comes in where they like make it like Tinder, and so like, you know, they start going through, you know, dates for you and potentially.
It's like no, oh yes.
It's been done, Dexter.
Oh, perfect. And maybe it'll get to the point where it's like, you know, Google says this is no good for you, so no, that person is gone. So I'll be there maybe next year.
Google can see their preferences and our preferences, and, you know, see if they match. And
I think we've just come up with a really good idea for Google. We need to go and see someone.
Well, that about wraps it up for another episode of Vertical Hold, coming to you live from the Googleplex. Scott, thanks very much for joining us.
thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
And Jen, thanks for joining us.
This is Jen Duplex signing out.
So if you've got an opinion on this, if you think Google's super great, super creepy, let us know. Drop us a message on Facebook or on Twitter. Thanks for listening. Remember, we're trying to build up a bigger audience this year, reach more people. So jump on your podcasting platform of choice, leave us a review, share it with your friends, help spread the good word. Vertical Hold is proudly sponsored by NetComm, taking Australian technology to the global market.